right, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived for the opening ceremony of the G20 summit in Argentina. Mr. Modi spoke a short while ago at the meeting of the BRICS countries on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Buenos Aires. Now, these are live visuals coming to you from the venue of the summit, the 13th G20 summit being held in Argentina. And these are live visuals of Prime Minister Modi walking in to meet his host country's leader, Mauricio Macri, at the venue of the 13th G20 summit. And just to give you, the Wion viewer, a flavor of what's on agenda of the G20 summit, India hopes that terror financing will top the agenda and that the Financial Action Task Force, or the FATF, will be strengthened further as the issue of economic offenders is a major concern for all the countries of the world. All right, as we watch these live visuals now, let me go across to my colleague Siddhant Simbal, who is standing by in Buenos Aires as we speak. Siddhant, walk us through the agenda of the talks that are set to begin at the summit at the venue, actually.
Well, a very good evening, Ramesh, to you in New Delhi. But it's morning here, 10:30 a.m. and the G20 summit has started to begin. Actually, the leader has started to arrive. The Indian Prime Minister just arrived after his first engagement. That was the BRICS informal meet, in which he strongly raised the issue of terror, of radicalization, of strengthening FATF, and called on reforming the various bodies such as the United Nations Security Council. But focus from India's side will be on terror and economic offenders, something which the Indian Prime Minister has already raised at the BRICS informal meet that happened. And we also spoke to the Indian Sherpa here, Shakti Kanta Das, who had told Wion earlier that this will be a crucial and key issue. But other than that, it will be global geopolitics that will be the focus. We saw a hectic morning for the US President Donald Trump, who, along with the Canadian Prime Minister and the Mexican leadership, had a new deal and lauded the Canadian Prime Minister, saying he's my friend. Remember his squabbles with the Canadian Prime Minister at the G7. So clearly, Donald Trump is using this platform here in Buenos Aires for an image makeover, given the fact that he has been having a roller coaster year, whether it's meet with the North Korean leader in Singapore, whether squabbles at the G7, and now finally at G20. But he has cancelled his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin over what has happened in Ukraine, with the Russians seizing 3 Ukrainian vessels. But he is going along with a working dinner with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is important given the fact that trade war is brewing between number 1 and number 2 world economy, something that impacts everyone, whether you are in New York or New Delhi. But today's G20 summit is something that the world will be watching carefully, because it's coming in the backdrop of trade wars, an increasingly fragile world. So clearly, a lot of things on the table when the leaders meet. The photo op takes place, the family photo takes place at 8:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and we can expect some uncomfortable moment as the Turkish President Erdogan comes face to face with the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who he has been accusing, without taking names, for killing Khashoggi. And of course, that is something that whose shadow, the murder of Khashoggi, is something that is a crucial issue here. People, of course, discussing here, don't know whether the leaders will be discussing it, but the Russian president is going to discuss this with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
The informal BRICS summit, which concluded just moments ago on the margins of the G20 summit happening in Argentina as we speak. I want to go across to my colleague Siddhant Simbal one more time. Siddhant, we spoke about the agenda of the summit in general, but when it's the G20 summit, what happens on the margins of the summit are equally important. Now, there are many bilaterals scheduled among all the various leaders present at the summit, but 2 key meetings stand out from India's perspective, and they're both trilaterals. One with Japan and the US, and the other with Russia and China, isn't it?
Well, yes, as you just mentioned, it's a diplomatic coup for the Indian Prime Minister, having 2 trilaterals with 2 diverse groups. On one side is Russia and China, another side is Japan and Washington. All 4 are perhaps against each other in some way or another, and India part of both a group, whether it's the RIC or whether it's Japan, America or India. I being the factor of stability, I standing for India. Clearly it shows India's growing stature, but it also shows that India has been able to manage ties with all the countries, whether it's its newfound friendship with Washington or whether it's its old friendship with Russia, or increasingly resetting ties with Beijing. The Indian Prime Minister will also be meeting the Chinese President Xi Jinping, an important bilateral that is taking place fourth time. As we have been saying, both the leaders are meeting, but both the trilaterals, important trilaterals, the Japan-India trilateral and US trilateral is pretty important. It's coming for the first time and coming in the backdrop of the Indo-Pacific concept gaining currency. Remember the Quad meet just 2 weeks ago in Singapore on the sidelines of the 13th East Asian Summit, and in the Quad is Australia, India, Japan and US, both at the joint secretary level as of now because of certain reservation by certain countries, but both keen to re-engage and have revived this Quad. And that is why this entire trilateral is pretty much very important. The trilateral takes place at 12 a.m. Indian Standard Time, and the focus will be Indo-Pacific, something that worries Beijing a lot, but that hasn't stopped Beijing from coming along with India and Russia for the RIC meet, and of course the BRICS informal meet shows that Beijing is also keen to engage with India. Perhaps it's the American pressure, but whatever it is, it also shows that all the parties involved, whether it's Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo or Washington, all are keen to engage with New Delhi so that it helps them also, and of course it shows India's stature at the world platform, at the world high table.